It's out of our control. It's not like he wants to kill. He just doesn't want to die. You know what I'm saying? It's that situation when we are living in a war zone. I feel like I can represent my generation so much because I honestly did not care whether I lived or died. But now, I cannot die. I can't leave until this straight. You know, I'm not suicidal. I can't go until y'all really know what time it is. And then after that, boom, it's all over. And we can see, how this fall. But that's how it is. And the reason being is because if I can't live free, if I can't live with the same respect as the next man, I don't want to be here. Because God has cursed me to see what life should be like.
I said we ain't no loafers, we ain't no poachers, we ain't no haters of self, we ain't no vultures. This ain't our culture. I said this ain't our culture. I said we ain't no loafers, we ain't no poachers, we ain't no haters of self, we ain't no vultures. This ain't our culture.
Oh, I'm on mute. I'm something precious, as my uncle say. Can y'all hear me? Make sure y'all can hear me. Make sure we live. Okay, boom. We live in attendance. What's going on, y'all? My name is E. Huff, if y'all don't know who I am. And this is Coming of Age, part of our Make a Culture Move here at Make a Chess Move Macam. This is our first podcast starting about coming of age for young adults 18 to 30, which will be led by me, Mr. E. Huff. I just recently started working here at Macam, so this is a task that I'm very much excited to lead, very much excited to be a part of. And we go jump in this and just get this going right away. We go jump and get it going right away. So first, I want to give a disclaimer real quick. Anything that's going to be said on this show on Wednesdays between myself, some guests that will be starting to come next week. Everything that'll be said here is a safe space. You know what I mean? This is a space for honest thinking. This is a space for young adults to come in and express their truth. You know what I mean? I think that a lot of the time, us young adults from the ages 18 to 30 are actually silenced more because we are raised to respect our elders and respect the status quo a lot more than I think we realize. So this is that space where you can kind of, be yourself, tell your truth, and be honest with the reality that you're facing. And I think it's super critical because for all us young adults, 18 to 30, if we ain't already leaders or of our communities or whatever space that we're in, we're headed to be those leaders. So it's very not only important, but it's just right. It's just right for us to provide a space for those people. I'm 23, I'll be 24 in August, and it's only right for us to provide a space for people 18 to 30 to talk about the struggle of coming to adulthood and all the challenges that we face as adults. And I'm just super, super excited to be here to lead this. So to kick this off, I'm going to first give just a little brief background of who I am, because I think that there's some viewers on here that might actually not know my story and know who I am and how I got involved with Macam and how everything brought about. So once again, my name is Elijah Huff. I was born and raised in the 5 Points, better affectionately known as the East Side of Denver. I think if you looked up the East Side of Denver, the first picture you go see is Phil, and then a couple pictures down, you go see me. So I'm an East Side baby through and through. My first house ever was on 2430 Gaylord Street. My grandparents moved from Texas sometime, I think in the early 50s, I believe so, and relocated in the neighborhood and have been serving in the community ever since. I was born into that household. My grandfather first bought the single unit. It was a multi-unit house, like a mini mansion is what we would call it. And he first bought the downstairs unit and then eventually worked his way up to buy the entire property. So I literally grew up with my entire family in one house. I'm talking about all my cousins, my aunts, my great aunts, my great grandmother, my mother, and then a host of other community relatives, if you know what I mean. I'm talking about those uncles that ain't really your uncles, those cousins that ain't really your cousins. So I grew up with that. To be raw and honest, just there wasn't too many positive influences, not only from the community, but in my family in the beginning years of my life. My mom jumped into the streets very early as a young age, well before I was even brought about. My uncle jumped into the streets very early at a young age, well before I was brought about. And then my grandmother definitely has some struggles from some past relationships and things that were not always beneficial and nurturing my mom and my uncle, and that, as we all know, as people of color or not people of color, that there's a trickle down effect from whatever your grandparents have been up to, or whatever your whoever your leaders are above you, it trickles down. So, my mother, she definitely did the best she could as a young teen, but the neighborhood definitely hijacked her. She joined the Crips early. Uncle joined the Crips early, and that kind of culture in my household, that reality of like violence and drug trade and things like that, were something that was definitely like very prevalent in my life in the early years. And all the way up until I was about 8 or 9 years old, we all stayed in that same house and lived in that environment and shaped under that environment until my great aunt actually sold the family home, which was it caused a lot of strife in the family. But at the end of the day, when we sit back and look at it, and especially when it comes to me, it was hands down the best decision, because not only were we just at risk of getting in trouble with the law, in all honesty, it was in a positive environment to be raising a kid. And then my great grandmother was in her late 90s at the time, and early 90s at the time. And just for a woman of her age, that environment wasn't good. So then my great aunt sold the house and we all split. And then I like to say that's kind of where life really got serious for me, because I think from the ages of birth till you're about 8, 8 or 9, it's good years. I'm not going to say that everybody has good years from there, but you're still so innocent. You're still so young in the mind. You understand what's going on, but it takes some times and some level of maturity to really understand the consequences of the choices that you can make or certain people make. So from birth to about 8 or 9, I would say it was pretty innocent until we sold that house. And then that's when life like really took a shift for me. My great grandmother died within the first year after the house was sold. And then next, my grandmother passed away. And then that kind of really sent my mom down a dark path too, because she was still so young. She lost my grandmother at, I believe she was 28, 29. And we're definitely going to talk about that in this, about, the damaging of losing your parents early and what that can do to your maturity, even if you're, past what would be considered adolescent or maturing years. But my mother lost her mother at like 28, 29. So that definitely shaped the back end of her maturation, and it changed her. And anybody who's lost a parent early, I'm thankful I haven't, but anyone who has will tell you lose your parents in your 20s, 30s, even 40s. That's still really young. That's young to lose your parents, and that's a life altering event. So that ended up sending my mom into a dark, troubling spiral downhill. And then we were living at the time on 31st and Lafayette. And if y'all don't know where that is, like, that's at the bottom of the hood of the East Side. And at that time, it was still very much the East Side. In the early thousands, before until about 2015, 2016, anyone will tell you the East Side was still very much the East Side. And I was raised in that. I was around that. I was around all the Crips. All my homies grew up to be Crips. I was built in that environment still. And that was about the age when I started to come to realization of like what actually my environment was around me and what kind of products it was producing. And my mom was also knowledgeable of that. And the community started to hijack me for a little bit as a kid. And she sent me to go live off with my great aunt for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Best thing that ever happened, honest to God truth. I think that in the youngness that I had and the anger and the frustration from the environment that I was in, once I was moved to my aunt's where she had a little bit more control and a little bit more wisdom, and she imparted a great foundation of faith on me, is when I started to, I wouldn't say that I started to shed some of the negative attributes that I picked up from my environment. But what I would rather say is I became aware. I became aware of what's good and what's bad. And a lot of times I think kids grow up in the neighborhood, like especially in the hood, and their parents do their best to raise them to tell them what is good or bad, but they're never actually shown what is good and what is bad. And that is that's a big thing. That's a really, really, really big thing. It's not only just knowing what's good and bad, but what is shown is good and bad. And my mom in the neighborhood had been showing me for a long time what bad was. But going out to my aunts and really living with her, and I'm talking about no BET, no MTV, no none of that urban channel. Not to knock my aunt, but my aunt's just a very devout Christian woman. And in her house it was Daystar. In her house it was Veggie Tales. Stuff like that. So it started showing me what positive thinking, positive behavior looked like. And I think that's where when things started to take a turn for me. Middle school was definitely rough. I was fighting a lot in the hood, out the hood, because my mom shipped me out to my aunt's, and I changed schools from going from Whittier out to a Hope Online school. And that changed me. That definitely changed me. But it was good, because if I went to school inside the neighborhood, I definitely don't think there would have been an opportunity to bump my head and not have such severe consequences. Because when a kid bumps his head in the hood, when he's fighting, when he's tripping, when he's doing all that, they like to ostracize you and kick that kid out of school, and it sends them right into the streets. I was at a school at Hope Online where it was a much more church-like environment. So within that church-like environment, there was the idea of grace, and I had a ton of it handed to me. I mean, I can't even begin to explain. So then from middle school, I got my act together, went into high school, moved back with my mom. My mom had got on her feet. She worked her tail off, not just to become financially stable, but also just to become emotionally stable enough to raise a young man. And then my stepdad had also been in my life for some time, but it had really, their relationship, I say, really got solidified by the time I got to about 8th grade, 9th grade is when I realized, like, okay, bros, go be around forever. So my stepfather, Rodney, I owe him a ton of credit. He showed me a lot about what it's like for a man to get up every day, no matter what the circumstances are, and go to work. And I just am really, I'm remarkably thankful for him. So when I went back to high school, I decided to go to Manual. At first, I wanted to go to East. A lot of people don't know that, so I'm telling some real truth on here. I really did want to go to East all the way up until about the first day before freshman academy at Manual, just because, East was the it school, but it was shown to me that I could carve and pave my own way going to Manual. And then once I got inside Manual, anybody who's went to Manual know once you walk through those doors, you don't want to go to high school nowhere else. The family environment was very real. I was loved by the staff, and it was just an amazing experience for me at Manual. And then at the same time, I was still growing up in the neighborhood, so I was still dealing with some struggles inside the house. My mom's not perfect, my stepfather's not perfect. They have trauma in their life that they're still trying to deal with. So still battling those realities. I fell in love with all sports. I ran track, I played basketball, played football, and I damn near played a game of soccer. My real homies know that, but I fell in love with sports and I chased that. And I quickly saw that that was my option outside of the neighborhood. Like, I quickly saw that I wasn't no hard labor dude. Like, shit, I hate working with my hands unless I have to. I hate building stuff, none of that. But I love to play sports, and I've always been naturally good at school. So I already knew from the get-go, like, hey, man, you need to go ahead and stick to sports route and stick to school route, because I was seeing in the neighborhood dudes was catching bodies, getting handed life counts, and just a lot of other things that I'll save for later conversations. So I don't ruin some of the content that we got coming. But I just really sold in and I bought into sports, and I was blessed to graduate from Manual 2015, get through all the struggles in the neighborhood, which this podcast will highlight that young men are going through, young women as well, and outside the neighborhood, just the overall struggle. I went to Fort Lewis College, played a couple years of ball. It was an incredible experience. Shout out to my boy Jalen Wright. I see that he's watching. That's where I got the opportunity to connect with him. That's really my brother. And it was just an awesome opportunity. It was an incredible opportunity to go to Fort Lewis, bringing a kid from the east side of Denver all the way 6.5 to 7.5 hours away to Durango. You would think that it wouldn't work, but I developed an incredible level of appreciation for the mountains, the culture that is in Durango, because to our view down here in the city, we think it's just a bunch of white people, you know what I mean, out there, but it's actually a lot of Native American people. And that was an incredible experience to just be around their culture and be around their family and see how they were able to stick together through the oppression that they faced, that we also have faced, but you know, there's different challenges to that. But seeing their family knit community and seeing all that was beautiful. So went up to Fort Lewis College, and then on March 9th, 2016, my life took a very drastic shift. One of my closest childhood friends, Terrell Burton, was shot and killed in Park Hill. I was home for spring break, actually. Fort Lewis at the time had the earliest spring break in the entire country. So we went on spring break a week before any other institution in the entire country went on spring break. So it was just a freak chance that I was home on that Tuesday, and it was definitely life-changing for me, because I went into college with a philosophy major. Like, I'm a thinker. Y'all go learn that from me throughout this podcast series and when y'all see me pop up on the other ones. But I'm a thinker. I've always been a thinker. I've always loved to pontificate over so many different things. And when Terrell was shot and killed, it made me realize that kind of where the track that I was on in college with my studies and my efforts was not actually real for me. Because when Terrell died, it hit a different part in my heart that made me feel like I needed to retaliate. And that's what a lot of kids who grow up in the hood, when you are bred in that environment of gang culture, and you know what the ritual is, what the code of conduct of law is supposed to be when one of your partners get killed. And I'm not no rookie to it. Part of the reasons why I think that I endured making it through the east side of Denver without getting quoted to the Crips was the fact of I was always deeply knowledgeable of the situations. Having a mother who's a Rolling 30 Crip, a stepfather who's from Trey, and then an uncle who's from Rolling 30 Harlem, you learn a lot about gang culture and gang structure. And the way they broke it down to me was, you know, this is your environment. You can't avoid it. You're not going to be able to run from it, but you need to be knowledgeable of it, because if you don't, it's going to get you killed, even if you try to stay out of the way. And anybody who grows up in the hood understands that notion of, if you don't understand your surroundings in good detail, you can get caught up in the mix very, very, very fast. And that's kind of what happened to the homies. Is they jumped in and started gangbanging so young without the knowledge of like really what the hell was about to go on and the consequences that was about to go on further than death or in jail. They was too young to understand that. I was luckily blessed enough to understand that. So I understood that process of retaliation. I understood how that worked. I understood I understand how that popped off. So when I got to look at that and look at my life and look at where things was heading, I said, this level of responsibility isn't going nowhere. I still every day feel responsible to retaliate for Terrell's death. It's one of the first things that's on my mind, and it's also one of the last things that's on my mind every time I close my eyes. But I was forced with the option of, how am I going to retaliate? You know what I mean? You can jump into the streets and get out there and cause some violence, but we know what that's going to bring. Or you can live a life that uplifts him and uplifts your community and makes a shift. And I wrestled with that. I wrestled with that idea for a long, long time. And it was very difficult being an 18-year-old young man, still immature, still trying to figure out his way throughout the community, while also 7.5 hours away from his home, trying to figure out what am I going to do now that one of my best friends is dead. And I sat in that dorm and I questioned myself and worked hard to try to come out with a decision. And then ultimately I felt like God had led me to become a social major, to study society, to study people, to study the trials and tribulations at a deeper scale of what my community was facing. So it was just deep, man. It was just deep for me to understand like that I had a way to retaliate, but I had to take a more positive route. And that's when I came home, decided to, first I decided to pursue sociology, got my degree in sociology, came home. My first job was working at a ministry called Open Door as an assistant youth director. It was a blessing being around kids. But overall, what this podcast kind of connects to that really part of my life, especially the most recent part, is the idea of I had this understanding. But why do so many young men our age, or young women as well, between this 18 to 30 who are put in the same situations that I was in, how are they how are they able to you know what I mean? How come they're not able to make the same decisions that I made? How come they are not able to see life through the lens that I've been lucky to see life through? And that's kind of been the whole chase for me. Kind of in life is just trying to get the homies in the community to wake up. And I think that a lot of times we focus on youth and old people. And when I mean old people, I don't want to disrespect nobody who's watching who's like just in their 40s, but just being young minded, just coming from a younger generation and how we kind of look at things, we start seeing old at like 40. You know what I mean? We start seeing old 40, 45, 50, and then we see young kids at basically 18 and under. And I think that a lot of nonprofit work, a lot of community work, business work in general focuses on those two demographics a lot, the 40 plus and then the 18 and under. But there's this space between 18 to 40, and really this will focus on between 18 to 30, where we're left out of the conversation. We're left out of the focus, the direct action, the direct what are we going to do to help those age range continue on in this process of life. And I've started to realize that with my homies, that their real struggles, both my homegirls and the homeboys, they real life struggles, at least for the ones that aren't dead, aren't in jail, or aren't just already lost off, their real deep struggles about their identity come between 18 to 30. And I think that's because a lot of the time, and especially being, a late 90s baby, the generation before us has abandoned us. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, we're wild as hell, my generation. If you was born in the 90s in general, but after 95, we have a habit of being crash dummies. You know what I'm talking about? We had a habit of just getting out there, pulling a gun, shooting people. You know what I'm saying? We're reckless as hell. And that's part of the reason why the older generation has kind of been pushing against us, because it's like, y'all just so damn out of control. They don't know what to do with us. And then the other notion is the generation before us was hit by a crack epidemic. So, all of us, all of you who are tuned in, if you're from any inner city, and now probably not even just from the inner city, you can name somebody who is born in the late 70s or early 80s that is a drug addict, specifically on crack. You can probably name a couple handfuls. At least I know I can name a couple handfuls, feetfuls, and keep going over again just about how deeply impacted that generation was. So there's just a void of support for so many reasons for people our ages, 18 to 30. So I think it's just so critical for us to have this space, and talk about what are the struggles that we're going through. Because number one, not only are we abandoned, we're a generation that is fully engulfed in technology. And I think that is something that we have to take the time to really sit down and process actually what that means to be literally always surrounded by technology, always influenced by technology. How does that play a role on our maturation? There is a real cultural divide right now between Black and white people that can be expressed so much through technology and social media. How does that play a role into how we mature and how we view each other? And then the divide between the two sexes, especially in the Black community. I think that how we operate with the opposite sex also really dictates how we mature as well. Because I know a lot of the homies have, and including myself, I'll happily throw myself under the bus first with this. I've altered not altered, I've slowed down my maturity by pawning my issues and pawning my problems off on young ladies. And I think that young men are really in the habit of doing that right now, is that they are slowing their maturity because they're taking the issues that we're going to discuss in this podcast, and they're taking it and they're trying to find a way to answer it on these young ladies. And that is stifling the young ladies' process of maturity, because now they're dealing with our issues instead of dealing with their own. So just the dynamic that exists there. Another thing that's been brought to my attention is that we're the generation that is a little bit more bold in addressing some of the trauma that we have with our parents, and there needs to be a space with that. One thing that I love about not only my mother, my stepfather, and my great aunt is that anything they ever did wrong to me, I can tell them, and it's definitely for damn sure not pretty at all. There's a lot of bad words that get said, and a lot of hooping and hollering, but it's just the idea of they have worked to create this space for me to express that they aren't perfect. And we are in desperate need as young adults from 18 to 30 to start addressing not only just relationships with our parents, but relationships with our grandparents, relationship with homies, community leaders. Um, it's time for us to sit down and really address what relationships have affected our life and altered our maturity. So we need to address that. Drug culture, especially being in Denver when it comes to marijuana, whether you view it as a drug or not, and just other drugs in general, nationally and internationally, we are very much pushed into a drug culture. Most of our artists highlight that they do drugs and are proud of it and glorify it. We as young adults we're really having problems with narcotics and drugs that are resurfacing that are older, like heroin. Not only heroin, but sherm, just so many drugs are starting to become very prevalent. And we have a lot of kids our age or young adults our age ODing. And we need to sit down and talk about that, is how is society pushing us to suicide? We are literally being pushed to suicide, not only because of bullying, and that's a whole nother topic and everything, even at this age, but just in terms of glorifying drugs and glorifying putting things in our body that damage us. So there's just a list of topics that are going to get addressed, and that I can go on over and over and over again on why we are having this podcast. But I am honestly really excited. I want to give a major shout out to my big brother, my OG, father figure, anything you want to call him, my boss, Philip Douglas. He has built this platform that not only I get to benefit from, but there are so many youth throughout the city that get this opportunity to benefit from this platform. This is a really real space. I think that a lot of the time nonprofit work is boring as hell. It's bland as shit, and it's just whack. But one thing that we do at Make a Culture Move, especially in Macam in general, is I think we add a little bit of that jazz, that urban behavior that invites a lot of our viewers in to see what we're talking about. And then that's really what this Wednesday will really be. I'm a pretty well-educated guy. I'm thankful for it. But I definitely will be inviting a lot of people into this space who you would consider not educated because they gang bang or only got their GED or don't have a college degree. This is not about that. This is about highlighting the people who are living real. You know what I mean? Not saying that people with education aren't living real, but we know, especially in Black and brown communities, that population is small. Like there's only a few of me running around here with college degrees and stuff like that. So I'm gonna really be inviting in a lot of people whose voices usually hushed and kept on quiet, and try to highlight them and get them to talk about the issues that we face in the community. Like I said, it gave in the disclaimer earlier, this will be a very raw and real space. I'm very excited to get some of the people that we're going to be having coming in these next couple weeks to come in and just share their experiences and discuss some of these difficult topics. So I'm just super thankful, super excited, man. We're going to be here every Wednesday at noon. One other thing I want to mention, I am also the owner of East End Visions. This was our first line, East First. East End Visions is an apparel company that is about spreading love. I created this vision because I wanted to translate the culture that I experienced in the East Side and try to multiply that across other neighborhoods and other spaces. And also not only multiply it, restore it in my own damn community. We've been gentrified enough, I believe. So it's just the idea of growing, restoring that vision, putting that vision of love that I learned in the East Side, growing up in the community, being around certain people, because it wasn't all bad. If you grew up going to the Shield, going to the Glenarm, you know what I'm talking about. So East End Visions is just that, it's just apparel showcasing that love. And this East First line was the first to come together to talk about just showing love for the East Side. So you can head over to eastendvisions.com. These are actually getting ready to go on sale today. All the original brand, the original line, we're getting ready to drop something new here in the next couple weeks. So please stay in tune for that. But other than that, yeah, it's just a super awesome opportunity to be here and work with Phil. I'm going to tap in with some of the comments that we have. My brother Kevon Tyler, what stopped you from being in the streets? Awareness. And I think that is what this podcast really is all about, is about spreading awareness of not only what's around you, but like who you are. And I think that at a young age, I was aware of the circumstances that I was around. People pushed it upon me. I was aware of the consequences. And then overall, I was aware of the image of what I wanted for myself. And I think that is dumbass critical, because it's like, I knew what kind of dude I wanted to be from a young age. Like, I never envisioned myself being in jail unless I had to be. Because if you grow up in the neighborhood, that's reality, but it's about how do you get to that reality. So I never envisioned myself in jail unless I had to be. I never envisioned myself broke, and I never just envisioned a life not worth living. So I always envisioned something better for myself. And I think that a lot of the times when we're shown and exposed so much bad stuff, it's hard as hell for us to envision what good stuff is, like what good stuff looks like, what our lives would look like if we lived it to the fullest. You know what I mean? I don't think we ever take the time, not a lot of us at least take the time to do that. So I think it's that's the major thing for me, bro, is I really envisioned what kind of person I wanted to be. So I appreciate, bro, for asking that question. Like, once again, I want to give a big shout out to my boy Jalen. I want to give a shout out to him with Rise Creations. That is on the go. He is an incredible artist, just with incredible vision as well. And he will definitely be tuning in on some of these conversations. He has some very deep perspective, brothers from the ACO. So he's definitely a real one. Give a quick shout out to Anton Baker. This guy right here is one of my mentors, along with Phil, especially when it came to my sports development side. It was super big for him. I literally would have not gotten through college without Anton, not only financially, but just mentally speaking. And we're going to talk about that too, about how draining it is to be an athlete and trying to find maturity as a young athlete. I mean, when you're up there, especially as a black man, you know what I mean? Especially as a black man, it is extremely challenging to find a level of maturity and adulthood that honors you and honors your community, especially when you leave the hood and go to an all white community, or just not even just all white community, or all away from a black community. There's a lot of mentalities you can develop in a little amount of time that can harm how you grow as an adult. But he definitely sheltered some of that and shielded me from some of that. And once again, speaking to that awareness, you know, he helped me be extremely aware. Coach O, I want to give him also a major shout out. This dude was my first football coach. Like, the first drill I ever went through was a little square drill where you run up, chop at the cone, slide, backpedal, and slide back. And Coach O was the first person to lead that for me. So I don't know if you know that, Coach O, but that was the first time I had ever came to football practice, been in that space. But you led that for me. Big major shout out to my big bro Steph as well. If y'all don't know, my man Steph definitely was victim to a horrible event. But just like most Eastsiders, all of us in his way, he stood tall and he's still here. I actually got to run into you the other day at the stove, and I'm very thankful that you're here, man. Stefan, actually, there's been two people that have ever crossed me and I've fallen. And that is Terrell, rest in peace. He caught me in the Glenarm when we was juniors. And then Coach Stefan caught me in 8th grade in Red Shield. I'm like out of the triple threat. He swung, did some crazy shit. It was wild, but I fell. So I'm gonna give you a big shout out, Steph. It's you and Terrell. I don't plan on putting nobody else on my list to put me on the ground with it when it comes to this basketball stuff. So I'm gonna give a big major shout out. And I just want to give a big major shout out to everybody that tuned into this opening session. Once again, I just can't express how really excited I am for this space, how much I really look forward to it. I would appreciate if all y'all could just like share the word, share this post. You can head over to makeachessmove.org. You can donate to us. We always accept donations, you know what I'm saying? That's how this nonprofit world works. And come support the community and an authentic community. I also want to give a major shout out to my boy Gerald. I know he's somewhere watching this. I just got to give you a shout out, Gerald, who's the backbone. Want to give a big major shout out. But head over to makeachessmove.org and you can check out how to donate and how to get involved. Spread this word of this podcast. Like I said, we Wednesday at noon, and then this is for my crowd. I know a lot of y'all, you know what I'm saying, y'all still partying, y'all going up on a Tuesday. So I was gonna get us up in the morning and get this jumping, but I really want y'all to make this. So we gonna start this at noon. So get your lazy ass up because we got something to talk about. Big shout out to my boy right here, you know what I'm saying, for saying this shit's cracking, you know what I'm saying, bro. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you tell everybody in the hood. This is my boy Andre. Make sure you tell everybody in the hood to tune into this. This is for y'all too, especially for the young homies. I want to make a quick speak just to the little homies real quick that's just slightly under me. This is really about y'all too. A lot of y'all don't want to jump into this nonprofit work and this community stuff because it's boring, and I understand that. I used to be your age, but this is a space especially for y'all. So if you a quoted gang member, you young, whatever the case may be, fresh into adulthood, whatever the case may be, please tap in with us because this is for you as well, because you've got to understand that as a young dude in the mix in the streets, once you've made it once you jump in the streets, regardless, your primary goal is got to survive. Like once you make that notion, and I don't know if y'all get quoted anymore, because y'all different. But if you've been quoted and you've been in the gang or blessing or however you want to say it, if you've been in the streets and you real about it, you know your number one mission after that is surviving. And what we gonna be talking about here is surviving. You know what I mean? What it means to not only survive but also to thrive. Like, how do you wiggle your way through some of the stuff you're going through? So we gonna talk about that. So make sure you tap in. Shout out to my boy right here, Amari. Appreciate you you tapping in. Like I said, same with Andre. Y'all tap in, man. This is for the homies. You know what I mean? The little homies, y'all fresh 18, 19, fresh in this. Y'all gotta tap into this, man, and y'all can jump in. We'll have y'all come in on the call because it's y'all's issues that y'all's going through. And also both of y'all are fresh fathers as well. And we're gonna talk about that as well, of how really real it is to start adulthood off being a parent. You know what I mean? And I think that's some ill shit we don't talk about enough in the community, is that literally, you know, we always talk about you ain't a man till you 30, or you ain't a woman till you 30 or something. We use that 30 range, but we preach that so much, but then we still keep having children 17, 18, 19, 20. Why, if we know, or it's been taught to us that we're not going to become adults until later in life, why are we doing the most adult task early? It doesn't make any sense for us. But regardless of if we're doing it or not, it's important for us to uplift them young men or young women who are in that situation. You know what I mean? We need to uplift young men and young women that have already fallen into the trap of having children early. Because I'll be the quickest to say, that's one of my biggest blessings is I'll be 24 in August with no children and none on the way, like not even possibly on the way. So I'm just thankful for that, because it's allowing me to mature at a very more comfortable rate, but that's not the reality for a lot of my homies, especially the little homies. So we want to speak to them and help support them in this conversation and help give them some tools in their toolbox that's going to help them be great fathers, because that's what we need out here. We need great fathers, great mothers to break that trend. Survival is key. Yeah, survival is everything, man. Survival is the bare minimum, though, at the end of the day. And that's the sad thing about being a person of color, too, is that survival is like a fish swimming. You know what I mean? And my favorite saying is I don't really like to congratulate fishes for swimming or applaud fishes for swimming or birds for flying. So, the survival is key, but we're just trying to get to this survival so we can get everybody, you know what I mean, on even playing ground. You know what I mean? We still want to think ahead. We want to think thriving. And this is a thriving conversation. It's a survival first, but we're trying to get you from going from survival to transition to thriving. You don't want to just survive. You want to thrive in this world. So we definitely want to get that going. But overall, yeah, if you want to be a guest, if there's a topic that you definitely really want to hear, something that's been pressing your heart, pressing your mind, that you feel the community absolutely needs to talk about, especially for us 18 to 30, jump in my inbox, man. We can get you on the show. We can get the topic discussed. Always, like I said, we at this every Wednesday at noon. I'm really excited. There is no topic we can't talk about, because we got the disclaimer popping off in front. So any topic you want to break down, anything you want to discuss, just hit my inbox, man. And anything you don't like said. One thing I love about Uncle Phil is on Top of the Top. And if y'all know what that is, Top of the Top with King Philip is every Tuesday and Thursday, 8:30 in the morning. I am a part of that as well. I'm the baby in the group, so that's kind of the reason why we started this. I'm by far the youngest by at least 15 years. So, but back to him though, what Uncle Phil always says is if you've got a problem with something I say or something anybody else says on here, don't wait till you see me. Because when you see me, I'm just gonna look at you crazy. Jump in my inbox, jump in these comments, get down where you mad at. If you from the hood, that's one of our favorite sayings is, get down where you mad at. So if you mad, you feel rubbed wrong, uncomfortable, just come to me like a man or woman and let's talk about it, because dialogue is also very essential what this is about too, because you got to have dialogue. If you keep letting these issues continue to be persistent in our neighborhood, we not go have, if we keep letting these issues be persistent in our neighborhood, we not go and not talk about them, we not gonna make no change. So we got to start being more persistent. Shout out to my boy Donnell, more affectionately known as Pootie. I went to college with this young man out at Fort Lewis. You are definitely top 3 and you ain't 3 most gifted athletes I've ever played with. So big shout out to you, bro, for tapping in. I'm pretty sure bro is overseas right now. If not, he is definitely stationed somewhere, definitely far from Colorado and far from his home in California. He's definitely on the other side of the country or the world. So definitely, bro, want to give a big shout out to you. I pray everything's going well with you and the fam. I just talked to Tajon the other day. So big shout out to you and the fam. But yeah, so yeah, anything you want to talk about, any issues you got, get up with me, man. Holla at me. We really want to talk about everything real. I can't express that enough. As you see, I'm throwing comments. I'm throwing comments on the screen. So as soon as you got something to say it on your mind. And I ain't got no problem throwing it up here. And yeah, we just go keep this going, y'all. We just go keep this going. Once again, share this with your friends. This is a Make a Culture Move podcast. You can hop on Facebook, check out that page, check out our Pushing Pawns, which is on 3 p.m. I think Monday or Friday, I want to say. I might be wrong on that, but 3 and 7 p.m. I want to say Monday and Friday, but you can head to the Pushing Pawns Facebook page and you can check that out, because we is teaching y'all how to play chess at the end of the day. Y'all got to be able to do that. It's crazy how much it translates over. But other than that, yeah, you can tune in with us every single Wednesday. We'll be going from 12 to 1-ish. Unc likes to have us done at 1 on the dot. I'm going to do my best to do 1 on the dot. But if there's some good conversation and we got some good viewers, and as long as I ain't got no I don't got nothing calling me after this, or, that I got to attend to, we gonna keep it going. Cause I think that there is so much stuff, so much valuable stuff that is going to get said here. And yeah, so I'm super excited. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next Wednesday. I'm gonna cap this one a little early. This was a little intro. Go ahead and add me on Facebook. You can also at Elijah Huff. You can follow the Instagram pages for all our Make a Chess Move, Make a Career Move, Macam, The Vast. You can follow all of that under Instagram as well. Head over to Instagram as well and follow East End Visions _apparel, so you can see some of the new stuff that we got going and what we got going on in the community. Once again, you can head to eastendvisions.com and you can purchase you some gear and get ready for the new stuff that we got going, and also see some of the other stuff that the apparel company has on going on in the community. And trying to make sure I ain't thinking anything else. Oh yeah, overall, man, just be a good person out here. I want to really close with that is, one thing that always I want to leave the group or leave the podcast with, like, just some takeaways, and some takeaways I want to leave from today is number one, or three of them really. Number one, know your story. I got up here, I told my story first because I think that if you don't know who I am and kind of know at least a brief synopsis of my story, how the hell you gonna trust what I say? A lot of things that I talk about are going to be rooted back into my story, and I'll bring that up. But if you don't know somebody's story, it's hard as hell to take them serious, valid, and trust them. So preach your story if you want people to know you're valid, because you don't have no better truth or no better knowledge than that. Number two, awareness. Awareness is key. I'm sitting in this chair talking to y'all, with my nice Nuggets hat on and my own apparel brand with the banner in the back, because I was aware. People made me aware of my environment. They made me aware of who I was raised by, and aware of what society is. So don't be dumb. You know what I mean? If you noticing something, you're aware of something, take those mental notes and digest it. That's a part about being an adult and maturing, is not being blind to stuff, because a lot of the time we want to close our eyes or turn our heads to the red flags, and we got to stop doing that. We definitely got to stop doing that. Be aware. And then lastly, man, be a good person out here. We're coming out of really, I don't want to say one of the most challenging periods in American history, because I think America's been challenging shit from the beginning, but one of the most documented periods where our challenges were shown to everybody in these past 4 years. So it's been really critical that in order for us to shift and move back to a society that we want to have, not that it ever existed, if we want to start gaining traction again to move towards the society that we want to have, it all starts with you. It all starts with how you treat people. It all starts on how you treat yourself. And it's all started about just how you treat the space that you live in. So treat the space that you're living in as a good person, treat other people as a good person, and just be a good person overall in general. So I'm gonna go ahead and close out with that note. I look forward to next Wednesday. Tap in with me tomorrow if you want to hear me talk again tomorrow, and hear some other people talk a whole lot more with Top of the Top with King Philip under Make a Culture Move podcast page. And and then lastly, because she kicked in, shout out to my mama, super OG. You know what I mean? Super OG. Wouldn't be here without you, literally. And I love you to death. Everything I do is for you at the end of the day. So super excited. I'm going to tap in with y'all next week.